Hi everyone, my name is May Park. Thank you for stopping by today. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a one-layer thank you card using the Ulta Lotus stamp set and Mijello Mission Gold watercolor set. My older brother sent me flower photos he took in South Korea. I love his flower photos as they remind me of my home country. His photos can be also used as a color reference when I color my stamped floral images. So I decided to use one of his Lotus photos as an inspiration as I'm hosting Ultimate's Inspiration Challenge this month. Make sure to check out the Ultimate blog to see how you can enter the challenge. 4 winners will each receive a $30 gift certificate to the Ultimate online store. For today's project, I'm going to use the Lotus stamp set from Ultimate. This is the 3-step layering stamp set and it also has the coordinating die set. But I'm going to use only outline images today. I'm also going to use the Builder Flower Camellia stamp set for the sentiment. I'll be using Canson XL cold pressed watercolor paper. I'm cutting down my watercolor paper slightly larger than A2 card size using Timo's paper trimmer. I'm going to use the original Misty stamping tool to make sure I get good stamping impression. Misty is so useful as I can also stamp the same image multiple times in the same placement. If you don't have this Misty stamping tool, you could use a regular acrylic block or stamp press for stamping. I'm placing my watercolor paper over the foam pad inside the Misty stamping tool. I'll be using 4 magnets to hold my paper in place. I'm pulling out one outline flower stamp from the Lotus stamp set and positioning it on my paper. Then I'm going to ink up the stamp with the first fine onyx black ink and stamp it on the paper. By the way, I'm going to stamp twice in the same position each time when I stamp the image so I get good impression. Then I'm going to stamp the same image on a post-it note. If you don't have a post-it note, you can use scrap paper or Inkadinkado masking paper. I'm cutting out the image on a post-it note with my scissors. You can cut right on the line or even slightly inside of the line. I'm going to layer my post-it note mask over the stamped image on my watercolor paper, covering the image completely. I'm using the temporary adhesive to hold the mask in place. Then I'm going to stamp my second image over my mask, positioning the image partially onto the mask. By the way, I use an absorbable towel to clean my stamps, which is a reusable cleaning cloth. This towel dries out between uses, then just add water thoroughly to rehydrate the towel. It's very inexpensive and easy to wash. Masking technique is a great way to create the illusion of depth as the image you stamp first is in the foreground and the second image is partially behind the first image. Masking takes time, but once you remove all the mask, you can see the beauty of masking technique. I'm going to continue stamping and masking until I finish creating my entire scene. I'm going to remove masks and I'll save them for future use. I'll be taping down my watercolor paper on the chipboard using washi tape. This will help prevent my watercolor paper from warping while watercoloring. It's now time for watercoloring. I'm going to use the Mijello Mission Gold 36 watercolor set and round paintbrush number 2. You can get a different result by wetting your paper with water first before you apply watercolors. However, I'm going to use the dry surface watercolor wash technique today. I'm mixing my paint with water on my watercolor palette using a paintbrush. Then I'm going to apply pigment toward the top of my flower petal. I'm cleaning my paintbrush and remove the excess water with a towel. Next, I'm going to go over the paint with clean water to diffuse the color using a wet paintbrush. While the color of paint is still wet, I'm going to add more pigment for darker hue to add dimension and shading. I'm going to repeat the same process until I watercolor entire images. If you make a mistake with your watercolors, you can fix it by adding some clean water on the paper and picking up the colors with a paper towel or paintbrush. I think cold pressed watercolor paper is easier to clean up the mess compared to the hot pressed watercolor paper. As you can see, I'm using post-it notes to protect my stamped images. Because I don't want to ruin my watercolor piece by dropping some watercolors while I'm moving my paintbrush back and forth from my water jar to my watercolor panel. Now I'm going to speed up the process and turn on some music so you can watch me color. I'll be back once I'm done watercoloring. I'm changing my paintbrush to number 8 as I'm going to create a watercolor wash background. I'm going to wet my paintbrush with a blue paint and lots of water and move the brush across the paper. I'm not going to color the entire background as leaving some white spaces as look beautiful as well. After drying my watercolor paper with a heat tool, I'm going to cover my watercolored images with a mask. Then I'm going to add some paint splatters to the top portion of my watercolor panel. I'm going to use my heat tool again to make sure that everything is dry before I move on. Then I'm peeling up the washi tape and removing my watercolor panel from the chipboard. I'm going to stamp the sentiment from the Builder Flower Camellia stamp set with a black ink. I'm using the Misty stamping tool again as it helps me place my stamp in a perfect placement. I'm cutting down my watercolor panel into 4¼ inch by 5½ inch using Timo's paper trimmer. I decided to add more paint splatters to the bottom portion of my card front to finish off my card. Then I'm going to mount my watercolor panel on the A2 size top folding card using double-sided tape. I normally use Nina Solo White 80-pound cardstock to create a card, but this time I'm using 110-pound cardstock instead. That's all for today. If you have any questions, please leave comments below and I'd be happy to answer them for you. I hope this video tutorial inspires you to create a card with masking and watercoloring techniques. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time with another video. Bye bye!